right. Hello, everybody. We'd like to welcome you all to our webinar on traveling with celiac disease. I'm Dr. Dale Lee, and on behalf of the Seattle Children's Hospital Celiac Program team, we'd like to welcome you to this amazing webinar, and I'm thrilled to have some very world experienced panelists here. And just briefly, so our goal as a celiac program is, of course, to help to care for patients with the diagnosis and ongoing care for celiac disease. But one thing that we feel is very important is helping people to establish community and understanding how to live with celiac disease on a day-to-day basis. So during our webinar today, we're going to focus on this idea of traveling with celiac disease. And as we as a panel were talking, we thought the biggest takeaway that we wanted to provide people was this idea that, hey, you may have celiac disease or food allergies, but traveling is doable. Okay, so that's the biggest takeaway we hope for. As an example, this is my son, Ryan. Some may argue that doing a webinar with a young child right beside you is not doable, but I think it's doable. We may not be perfect, but that's okay. So we're going to do our best, and we're going to have a webinar. I'm going to be a moderator, and I want to introduce our 4 panelists real quickly. But before I do that, I want to do a quick shout out to the Stanford Pediatric Celiac Center, as well as the Children's National Pediatric Celiac Center. The doc leaders of both programs have been generous and have sent the invite out to the community. So with no further ado, I'd like to introduce our panelists, and I'll just do a real quick one-liner and then let them all introduce themselves. First is Erin Smith. She's a world traveler, and she's the founder of the Gluten-Free Globetrotter community. Our second panelist is Kyle Dine. He is somebody who has lived around the world and is the CEO and founder of Equal Eats. Our third panelist is Ann Moon. She is a parent of a daughter with celiac disease and a wonderful advocate and an important part of our celiac program here at Children's in Seattle. And then finally, we have Dr. Ann Maroka. She is the newest addition to our celiac program team here at Seattle Children's, and she brings a unique perspective that I'll let her share about herself. But can we start with intros real quickly, guys? So my first question to everybody, we're going to keep this as sort of an open dialogue and sort of a discussion. So if you as the audience have any questions, feel free to please enter your questions into the Q&A. I have enabled the chat functionality as well, so feel free to say hello and where you may be coming from. And our panelists, question for you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself in 30 seconds, about yourself and your experience with traveling? Erin, I'll let you kick us off.
Hi, my name is Erin Smith. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited. I'm the founder of Gluten-Free Globetrotter. I was diagnosed with celiac disease in 1981, so it's been 44 years. I'm originally from New York. I ran a support group in New York City for many years, and I recently moved to Montreal in Canada. So I am in freezing cold Montreal today. And Kyle?
Yeah, hey everybody, I'm Kyle Dine, and I guess I thought the prerequisite was that I had to be traveling for a traveling webinar. So I'm currently at Dulles Airport in Washington en route to London. So currently traveling. I have multiple food allergies myself to multiple foods, and my wife has celiac disease. So love to travel, love to help people stay safe. I'm the founder of Equal Eats. We specialize in translation cards for people that travel the world that want to communicate their dietary restrictions accurately. So really happy to be here, and thanks everybody for coming. And I'm going to throw it to Ann Moon next.
Hi, I'm Ann. I'm in Seattle, and I've been navigating this celiac disease on behalf of my daughter since she was 20 months old, and now she's almost 17. So it's been a few years, but we've traveled all over on purpose because I love to travel, but also to highlight to her that having celiac disease does not need to get in the way of any of her wishes and dreams. And so we've been very successful traveling. I'm also super involved with the celiac program that Dale started, and I'm on the board and help fundraise with our annual fun run every May. Dr. Romka, your turn.
Hi, everyone. Anne-Marie Romka. I'm as Dale said, the newest addition to our celiac disease program here. I was diagnosed with celiac disease about, 15 years ago now, and kind of led me on my path to be a pediatric gastroenterologist. And I'm very excited to be here today with you all and be part of our celiac program at Seattle Children's.
Great. Thanks so much, guys. And just a real quick shout out to Kyle for being willing to take this webinar. We thought like it could be no better than having somebody literally in an airport and about to board a plane. So Kyle will have to depart us shortly, but appreciate you, Kyle, being part of this.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you all for the chat as well. So we'll be happy to take Q&A. I'm going to be the moderator and help to kind of look through the question and answer. I will interject questions to our panel. We have some preset dialogue, but we will save some time at the end to really tackle some of the tough Q&A as well. Guys, so can you tell us a little bit, sort of from a very basic level, what are some of your basic principles about traveling with celiac disease and other dietary allergies? Can you just kind of tell us some of the fundamental principles that you guys think about?
Sure, I'll start. And I know we kind of all agreed on this when we were chatting before. My number one tip is to always start your research before you start traveling. I like to include the travel research, like the gluten-free research, as part of my travel itinerary. I plan a lot of my trips around food. So, if I'm looking for a place to stay, I'm looking for top touristy spots, but I'm also looking for gluten-free friendly restaurants. I'm looking for, supermarkets. I've booked an Airbnb in Paris before, right next to a gluten-free bakery, because I knew it was there. So I did a lot of research. I always do a lot of research before I go on trips. And I can't emphasize that enough. I'd rather have a list of like pre-vetted restaurants than to get there and just be like, where am I going to eat? So my number one tip is do your research ahead of time.
Yeah, I can jump in.
Yeah.
I have my backpack right here, and this is always filled with safe snacks for me. So no matter how long the trip is, I make sure to always have enough food with me to get me through this. Is chocolate. I also have my granola bar. So I always make sure to have enough safe snacks that will get me through a couple of hours at least before, getting grounded again.
That too.
Yeah. I think for me, because we're a family of 5, and my daughter's the only one officially with celiac disease. And so one of our guiding principles is really kind of building in some time, just because they're also young kids too, 16, 13, and 10. And they can't quite travel with the energy that maybe I would like to do, and with the added stress of needing to find safe food and everything. I really do try to build in time, and we stay at Airbnbs a lot of the time. And it's like, okay, we're not going to overpack the day, maybe see 1 or 2 things. So there's downtime. I really love being able to have breakfast in a space that's like with our own kitchen, because we can kind of just slowly start the day and not just, start the day with like, where are we going to find food, but that's, just kind of what we do. But yeah, snacks and research.
I echo all of that as well. Really, preparation is going to be key. And something I've learned is also flexibility too. So, the preparation helps you with the flexibility as well. But, sometimes you have those intense cravings for certain foods that you're just not necessarily going to be able to find gluten-free, and that's okay. And learning for it to be okay too can also help make the trip experience better.
Can I ask a follow-up question, guys? So you all are very seasoned experts in this traveling business now. Some of us have not done a lot of traveling. Can you tell us, how did you get the courage to start doing this? Was this something that you just knew, I got to have a backpack ready to go do all this research? Or can you tell us how you sort of got baby steps into traveling and felt like, I can do this and learn a little bit and then maybe do something bolder, a bigger trip?
I think just real quick on my end, I think one of the things about in terms of carrying snacks and meals, worthy hearty meals on planes, is that I just never liked airplane food. And so even before this diagnosis, carrying on something that I really liked to enjoy eating and that was satisfying and filling and not just, relying on that little teeny tiny plate of airplane food. So I kind of rolled into this diagnosis and traveling with the notion of, oh, of course I'm going to take my own food. I wouldn't even count on the airplane food as my sole source of food. So
I was going to say that I just really wanted to travel. I mean, I grew up with celiac, so it was we never stayed home because of my celiac. So growing up, my family went on trips. I went to sleepaway camp. I went away to college. And it was really in my early 20s when all my friends were getting married, and I just wanted to start traveling the world. And I did. I started in the United States, just traveling around, but I never really considered my celiac anything to stop me from traveling. So I know I'm probably like different in that I just grew up this way. And my sister was diagnosed with celiac as an adult, so I know both ends of the spectrum as living this way and then changing your entire life. But it just kind of, as you said, like baby steps into it, and that's kind of what I would suggest if you don't have the lifelong experience. And it sounds like your daughter is going to have that lifelong experience like I did. So
yeah, for sure.
And I'll just echo that with baby steps. Like I was such a homebody growing up. I didn't go anywhere. I just stayed at home. Summers were home playing baseball, no travel. And it just slowly started growing my boundaries. And I always think of it as like a circle of comfort. And I think for anybody with with celiac disease or whatnot, there's no pressure. You don't have to go to the other side of the world right away. Just going down the road to another state, and an English speaking country, whatever gets you going and is in your comfort level, I think is a great start. And you go from there. You learn so much just trying. So you don't need to swing for the fences right away. For me, it started just going to different states and then English speaking countries, going to summer camp, and just growing that confidence as I went.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I also did do some research into knowing I wanted to take some bigger trips abroad. What countries seem to be a bit more friendly than others as well, or easier to navigate, even with just whole foods and things like that, that I could easily get by without eating gluten, or risk cross-contamination as well. And so I did choose kind of my first like few big trips outside the US in countries that seemed that overall it might be a little bit safer, but it was something I had the flexibility to do at the time too. So we have to take that into consideration as well.
A great perspective, guys. Thank you. And I want to do a couple follow-up questions from the audience here. And as I prepared for my son to be right beside me, we had a lot of snacks going on in my desk over here. So a couple of good questions from the group. From Lynn Reynoso, what kind of foods do you pack in your carry-on for flights? And second question from Nancy Murphy, do you need to have a letter from your doctor about needing to bring extra food on flights? So what foods, and do you need a letter? Kyle, I'm going to throw it to you first. Oh, sorry, go Ann first and then Kyle.
No, I just bring family favorites, like leftover pizza or pasta, things like that aren't like liquidy. So there's no issue with going through security or spillage or anything like that. Or soups that are dehydrated, where once you get through security, you can just add water and you can have like a noodle soup, and that's light, and so it's not very heavy, which is helpful.
And I've gone on so many flights, and I can say I've never been asked for any type of note or documentation for any of the food that I've had. So, that's just my experience. But I try to pack food that makes me completely discouraged from eating airline food or having that need to feel like I should eat on a plane. So I make the most beautiful sandwiches, I have to say, that I'm very, very excited to eat my food, and I'm not tempted by things that might be, cross-contaminated or not safe. So I'd say put in that extra time beforehand to make yourself a special treat, get the extra candy for the kids or whatever it takes, so that temptation is a little bit tempered.
Yeah, I've also never been asked for a letter or anything, or stopped with that. And I usually have at least like one full backpack full of dedicated snacks for myself on these trips. The only time I've ever been stopped was traveling. I went to a dedicated gluten-free bakery I was really excited about, and I happened to buy like a biscuit mix, which is maybe not the best, thing to bring powdered substance through an airport. But they read the label and it was fine. But that was the only time I've been stopped or had any sort of like gluten-free encounter in the airport. So.
Yeah, I was going to add, I did get a letter once. I was going to Singapore for a work trip, and I had so much food in my carry-on. And honestly, the TSA agent could not be bothered. Like, he's just like, whatever. Like, he didn't look at the letter. To Anne's point, I try to bring things that are not considered liquid. And like, it kind of has changed again over time. I've had times where they'll take away nut butter. Or even yogurt, but sometimes they let it through. So I try to stick with protein. I think that's one thing I really used to only rely on, like chips and crackers, and that does not get you through a long trip at all. I see some people in the chat put like packed tuna in like the pouches. I've done that. That I tend to eat only in the airport because you don't want to be that person on the plane opening up tuna fish, But I try to pack a balance of snacks and protein. And to Kyle's point, I also always pack treats for myself because I'm like, you're going to be stuck in this airplane for however many hours. So, but yeah, I have a letter. I actually have a sample letter on my website. I've never, ever, except that one trip, that was the only time I used it.
No,
Good perspective. Oh, go ahead, Kyle.
I'm so sorry, but I do have to run. Our flight is boarding now. So my last words before I really have to go is that you can do it. Just take your own pace with travel, with any type of dietary restriction is doable, but don't feel the pressure. I think, the most important thing is that you do it when you're ready and you do your research, as Erin said, and you take those baby steps to the point where you feel like you can do it. So thank you for having me. I'm so sorry I've never had to leave a webinar early before, but I really got to go.
No, this
You
is
have a
perfect,
good
Kyle.
excuse.
Kyle, thank you. We love that we got to get the perspective of somebody physically moving through the airport. And I have to call out, guys, that Kyle's company, Equal Eats, is a wonderful resource for cards that have dietary allergy explanations in a variety of different languages. So I do want to call out the awesome work that Kyle's company, Equal Eats, is doing. Okay.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye, Kyle. Safe travels.
Hi, Kyle.
Okay. With that amazing lead-in, I want to ask the group, tell us a little bit about your thoughts on, is it challenging to go through an airport with celiac disease? Sort of how has it been interacting with airlines, having celiac and being gluten-free?
So I run a large celiac travel group on Facebook. Many of you might be in it. And we the moderators and I came together with a blanket statement. It's like, never trust the airline food, because you never know. And it's actually not the airline's fault. There's catering at the airport, different catering in every city. So you can request the meal. It doesn't mean you're going to get the meal. If you are delayed or you get your seat changed. I was flying to France and my seat got changed. So the woman in front of me got my meal and I had nothing for the whole trip. So I always tell people, do not rely on airline food. I know it's frustrating because people, there's something kind of like quirky and fun about getting a meal on the plane, but let me tell you, it's way better to just eat what you have and not worry about getting sick, 36,000 feet in the air. I will say, I think in airports, it's getting better. I'm like amazed at the number of snacks now that you can find that are gluten-free, and they'll tend to all be like together. And then also, some restaurant chains are getting a little bit better. So I think it's getting better. I wouldn't say it's perfect at all. But I never fly ever. Even now that I'm flying back and forth to New York from Montreal, which is 1 hour, I never fly without food. I always bring my own. So it's challenging. It's not perfect, but I would say the airlines are very far from perfect.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think airport to airport depends on how big it is, where it is. Some areas of the country are more knowledgeable. And so, I would say bigger the city, bigger the airport, higher chance of finding food. And in terms of like TSA stuff and letting things go through, it's just, I've gotten dinged. They never take it. I had guacamole taken away one time. But I always get extra searched when I pack foods with foil versus not foil. So just an FYI, if you want to not get or decrease your chance of having them do extra searching on you. So like it'll go through and it's like a loaf of bread that I have, like banana bread wrapped in foil, and they're like, what's this big brick of black on my other screen? So just as a convenience.
Yeah, thanks so much, guys. Can I ask, have you ever had like a really bad experience on an airplane, where something happened that you did not expect, or have you been able to kind of prepare for that? Dr. Romk, I'll throw it to you first.
Yeah. So one experience that comes to mind is obviously, I'd always pack plenty of food, but on our flight to Italy, they did not end up, even though I had called and confirmed about my meal multiple times, they did not end up with it on the plane for whatever reason, and there weren't any other safe food options. And I had plenty of snacks and everything, but everyone gets to eat their nice hot meal around, so it always feels a little sad sometimes, right? But everyone around me noticed what was happening, and they all kept giving me their cheese packets, or I forget what else. I think a lot of butter pads too, to go with the crackers that I had packed as well. And so everyone just kept like packing or passing over their things, which was very sweet and lovely. So it ended up being kind of a nice, fun experience, and got to know some other people on the plane because of it. But again, with the flexibility, just kind of have to roll with it. And I had a lot of dairy that day.
Yeah, I had a similar experience as Dr. Ramka. Like I said, I got my seat changed on the flight to France. I got a lot of grapes and a lot of cheese. And, I knew the woman ahead of me had my meal, but she had already started eating it, so there was nothing I could do about it. The other thing I will say is that sometimes you might get the meal and then they put a big old gluten bun right on top of your meal because they're giving everybody bread. So I try to be really careful, and I'm really vocal on the plane too. Like as soon as I sit down, I'll say I ordered the gluten-free meal. But I've definitely been handed a meal and then they put gluten right on top. But I'm like, well, you just ruined the whole meal. So I get very relieved when you see GFML, which means like gluten-free meal. I've had some really great experiences, and I saw a message in the chat. My better experiences are flying home from Europe. I find that like the meals coming from Europe to the US have been surprisingly more gluten-free friendly. So.
Yeah,
Oh,
thanks
and
for
there
that.
is someone, sorry, I do see a question that came in. I am talking about gluten-free meals on the plane. I've had gluten-free meals on the plane, but I will only eat it if I can read the label. I've been on flights before where I've gotten like an Udi's bagel that's individually packaged, or, cheese and crackers in a sealed thing that said, the ingredients are there. And so if I don't trust it, I won't eat it. It's not worth the risk to me. So I don't know if that was confusing. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I like that clarification. And I think like it's always okay to order something gluten-free, and there could be something very good that's delicious. But a message that I'm hearing loud and clear is have a backup plan and carry your own food, because you can't always rely on things. So I like that message. Guys, I'd love to ask another question to the panel right now. And we've talked about some of the preparation and sort of the challenges, but what are some things that were really eye-opening to you all when traveling with celiac disease and needing to be gluten-free? Like, what were some things that were eye-opening, unexpected when you were traveling with celiac?
I think that some places are just easier than being at home, actually. Both, like it really depends on where you're going, but Italy, and that's a really big far trip. Europe is pretty straightforward. Even France and Paris was pretty straightforward, and I've heard people have a hard time there. But going to Hawaii, the Kauai Island, I mean, we had never traveled like that before. We were there for a whole week, and every single day we ate out lunch and dinner at different places for the whole week. And that was probably the first time we had traveled like that since pre-diagnosis. There just weren't that many variety of options. Like, we went to one place a couple of times just because it was so good, but like they just get it. It was like, of course we can serve you, of course we cannot. There was no gray area. And I was just like, wow, how did they get it? And that's what it feels like in Europe too. It feels like that it's like either a clear yes or a clear no. And they are happy to tell you, no, we cannot serve you, or yes, we can. So there's no this, I don't know, maybe we can try, or how about if we prepare it like this? Or it's a very clear, that was eye-opening to me. It was the clearness of it.
For me, one of the biggest things was that the lengths that some people are willing to go to, and kind of restores your faith a little in traveling, especially if you've had bad experiences as well. And I've had so many strangers try to bend over backwards to make things work when there isn't, a good option. And then also very pleasantly surprised with how wonderful. We went to Italy for 3 weeks and I didn't get sick once, and everyone thought I wouldn't be able to eat anything there. And it turns out it was such a phenomenal experience. And for me to go traveling that long and not get sick at all is unusual, and the only time it's ever happened. So it was pretty wonderful and surprising.
I will say eye-opening. So I've driven cross country twice, New York to California, and then California to New York. And now I grew up in New York, and I also lived a short time in California. What was eye-opening to me and really made me appreciate like the larger community is it's really hard in middle America. Like, I did a lot of meals on the road by going to Walmart and just buying gluten-free food at Walmart. So I would say, I don't know if it's so eye-opening, but you get really creative when you have celiac. And, I like to call it like a gas station meal. You're kind of like, you're getting the boiled eggs, you're getting a piece of cheese, you're getting a piece of fruit. And so I think you really need to think outside of the box. Like everybody is so worried about finding a restaurant, but sometimes you just have to like give in to the supermarket or to the Walmart, because I didn't realize how good I had it in New York until I drove cross country and got to Wyoming. And I'm like, there's no people and there's no supermarkets, but there's a mega Walmart. Let me go there. And so I think that was really eye-opening. But kind of to echo what the other two have said is that it's very eye-opening outside of the US, how people take you seriously. And really, I find outside of the US and even here in Canada, it's not trendy to be gluten-free. People are like, oh, you have a medical condition, like you need to eat this way. Whereas I found more, especially when I lived in California, people thought it was trendy, and I had to go through the whole, like, I have celiac disease. So it's eye-opening to see how other countries kind of approach celiac disease.
Hey Dale, I saw somebody ask about cruise ships and things like that. We haven't done cruise ship travel, but I would say that would be something that it would be similar to like an all-inclusive resort stay. And so it just takes pre-research and clarifying with them in advance that there are understanding. And there's also the celiac cruise as an option that's come about. And there's a few different trips that they do, and that they have a dedicated kitchen on the boat that is 100% gluten-free. And so that's a great cruise ship option. But I've heard some good things about it. But it falls under that all-inclusive idea of you're going to eat every meal at the place. And so you just do the same sort of research and question asking.
Yeah, I've done one cruise since being diagnosed, and I just made sure I identified my key people. I always sat at the assigned table, so I had the same people taking care of me at all the different meals too. And honestly, it went really smoothly if I kind of stayed within those parameters, and I was able to eat a very wide variety of things, and they kind of went above and beyond to make sure that I had more than I needed all the time, which was really nice.
I appreciate the perspective on cruise ships. The unique thing about the cruise ships is you're probably not going to pack all of your food there, right? So doing your thoughtful homework ahead of time, having a dialogue about like your medical condition, very important. I do want to give a quick shout out to the Celiac Disease Foundation and the Celiac Cruise. I actually met with the ladies who organized that. And for those of you who may or may not know, this is sort of a cruise where it's dedicated to people who have celiac disease, need to be gluten-free. And there's a large portion of the funds from the cruise that go out to families in need. They have some cool educational programs where they will actually fund the delivery of food to people for 6 months and provide educational resources. So that's a great option out there, a good option. I want to pivot a little bit more, guys, as we think about a label reading. So label reading is something that all of us have learned to really be very intensive about. But can you tell us about your experience about international country label reading for wheat, gluten, or other food allergens? Can you tell us, has that been a unique challenge? What are your strategies for label reading if you are outside of the United States?
So something that I do anytime I'm traveling to another country, especially if I don't speak the language, is I will download the entire language in the Google Translate app into my phone in case there's any, spotty reception or things like that. And then I also typically make sure I pay for the international phone usage and internet access too, so that I can be searching these things in real time when I need to. And then the app does have where if you select the language and hover over the label, it will automatically translate it for you too. Sometimes it's a little jumbled, but for the most part, it works really well to do that. And then also helps communicating in restaurants too, if you need to as well.
Yeah, I would also add, I like to familiarize myself with the word wheat and like gluten in the language of wherever I'm traveling. I know that in Europe, they have to list the top 14 allergens, and European labels have to be in multiple languages. So at least get to know in the local language what, wheat, gluten, barley. And then I know Kyle had mentioned there's sometimes you'll see a sticker over the native language. I've actually experienced that a lot here in Canada, where there'll be a sticker over an imported product. I would say don't rely on the translations. I've gotten burned that way before. But there are errors with that. But what I would say really to Dr. Ronquist's point is using Google Translate. That is, the camera function is really kind of amazing, but also getting to know the words locally. And just kind of along those lines, besides the gluten words, I always learn please and thank you in the local language, because even if you cannot communicate gluten 100%, being polite goes a long way. So please and thank you, and then gluten, or even celiac. Like I find in Europe, if you say I have celiac, people can understand.
I like that point that you made, Erin, and I think it's something that we have a dialogue about in the United States as well. So we, of course, want people to be as thoughtful as possible about label reading and rigorous when you have a discussion with a restaurant. But this idea of, especially as a foreigner coming from another country, asking questions with your less than perfect English, other language, being able to demonstrate that you are appreciative, I think goes a really long way. So I appreciate that very much. I have a question from the chat here, guys. How common is it to come across 100% gluten-free restaurants while traveling? When you travel, do you aim for 100% gluten-free, or are many of the places you go shared kitchens?
I do shared, and actually I'm going to piggyback off another question I can see in the chat. So I do use Find Me Gluten Free to start my research. It is there's no perfect app out there. I actually drove out of my way to go to a gluten-free restaurant in Minnesota, only to find out that they had a shared fryer with shellfish, and I have a shrimp allergy. So I was all excited for gluten-free onion rings, and I couldn't eat them anyway. So there's no perfect app. I think starting on something like Find Me Gluten Free, you can actually filter for dedicated gluten-free. I eat at shared restaurants. I grew up eating that way because there was no such thing as a gluten-free restaurant in the 80s. So I do eat at shared restaurants, but I start with the app. I'll also contact the restaurant, usually through Instagram, send them a message. I never rely on just one tool. I think it's too dangerous, but I do use Find Me Gluten Free around the whole world. I've used it. Also, local support groups are great. I know someone earlier mentioned the AIC in Italy, which is the local And also in Spain, they have their own app. So wherever you're going, like I'm pretty sure that a resource exists. And this goes back to the very beginning with research. So using the tools, using the translation cards, and then getting a local resource as well.
I think I saw somebody ask about like vegetarian options too. What I found, at least abroad, is, and similar here too, I guess, is that a lot of vegan and vegetarian restaurants are also the gluten-free option restaurants, which we're not vegetarians or vegans. You know, like a hamburger is my daughter's love language. So, you know, it's hard. That's challenging for us, but I just think that the shared kitchens are okay, but also be thoughtful of the fact that you might be able to find places that have multiple dietary needs, especially when you're, you know, doing the vegetarian vegan route, which can add a layer of difficulty in certain communities.
Yeah, appreciate that insight, Anne. That's good insight. Guys, we're coming to a close here, so we're gonna talk briefly about a key difficult question about what do you do when you get sick from celiac or getting gluten while traveling. So we're going to discuss that. We're going to do a couple of rapid fire questions from the audience, and then we're going to conclude, guys. But I want to ask this group, so what have you done when you get sick from your celiac disease because you got inadvertently glutened while traveling? I want to let the non-doctor people answer first, and then I want to ask Dr. Romka to kind of end this.
Well, I get violently ill, like violently ill. Luckily, it hasn't happened that many times when I've been traveling. Quite honestly, I just have to get the gluten out of me. So I'm usually vomiting and very sick. There's nothing that can help me except water, if I can manage drinking the water, or maybe like electrolytes, but I just have to get it out. And then usually I'm probably in bed for a day or two. The last, knock wood, very horrible glutening. I was from going from Paris to Germany. I ate something labeled gluten-free, but it had been prepared in a shared environment. I was pregnant and I was sick for like 72 hours. It was terrible. My whole trip to Germany was ruined, but you know, I have to ride it out. There's really nothing else I can do.
Yeah, it's time, water, just letting the system flush out. I mean, it really is just like, it just needs to get out. And so, yeah, sleep, time, water. I will sometimes have on hand an anti-nausea little tab just to help maybe take the edge off the nausea piece of it, just because that's its own thing. But other than that, nothing but time.
Yeah, and I can speak kind of personally and then medically as well. So for me, you know, significant symptom is primarily abdominal pain. And the really nothing helps either except for time and distraction. So I try to, you know, if I'm feeling very tired, then, you know, taking the time to rest. But then sometimes for me, it's just distraction techniques, what I can be doing or going for a hike or playing a game, things like that to help kind of keep my mind off of it. And then prioritizing my sleep as well, since it's harder to sleep then too. I think it's really important to make sure that since celiac, everyone has such a wide range of symptoms and how they react and to the severity that they react as well, that you talk with your doctors about the best strategies for you and your symptoms and kind of having that backup plan, emergency plan that you make with them prior to traveling, I think can be helpful and it'll be more personalized to you as well.
Yeah, no, thanks so much for both sharing personal information about your symptoms and your guys' approaches. It's really valuable here. And I'll share, I don't have celiac disease, but I get this question a lot from my patients as well. So I want to encourage all of the attendees here, please have this discussion with your primary celiac team as well. But let me share a little bit about what I tell my patients. So when they ask me the question about activated charcoal or maybe an Amazon gluten digesting enzyme, I tell people these are not well studied or vetted to have an impact on glutening. So first of all, the activated charcoal question. Activated charcoal can potentially bind very, very small chemicals. Gluten is a large protein, so activated charcoal does not have a role here for getting glutened. in terms of gluten digesting enzymes off of Amazon, these are not well studied here, and I do not recommend taking supplements or medications that are not well vetted here to my patients. So there are some clinical trials going on for potential medical therapeutics that could act via the mechanism of digesting gluten. But these are much larger studies that are very carefully evaluated to make sure that they're both effective as well as safe. So I think the message that I've heard is it's a tincture of time, patience, and a little bit of hydration. Right now, we do not have a clear-cut therapy if you've been gluten, so it requires a little bit of patience here. Okay. Guys, I want to do a few rapid-fire questions, and then we're going to wrap it up. So these are food-specific questions. We have a question from Lauren Stacy. What are your best products for keeping food hot or cold? My daughter often struggles to enjoy foods that have been packed for several hours. Best products for keeping foods hot and cold. Any recommendations?
For cold, I always make my sandwiches on frozen bread. And funny enough, I always wrap them in foil. I know you said to avoid foil, but I find they stay colder. But
It's true.
freezing my bread and that keeps it colder longer without the risk of getting your ice pack taken away. And then also I've frozen grapes before. That said, you can't always bring fruit into foreign countries, but domestically, it's a great tip because you can also eat the grapes. So I actually never bring hot food with me when I travel. I only bring cold food or packaged food.
I've got a lunchbox size container that has a heater in it where you can plug it in. It's like a hot plate. I mean, you can plug it in if you're, if you have access to a plug, you have to have access to a plug. And it takes a little while, but it can kind of slowly kind of warm up some pasta or a leftover, something that would be great to have warm, even though you can eat all that cold. But yeah, if you like to have things warm, it's, I don't remember the name of it, but it's on Amazon. I ordered it. It's like, you can just see like, plug in lunchbox, warming plate, some keywords like that, and it'll pop up.
Another rapid fire question. What type of cooking related items would you bring or buy if possible when traveling abroad? Like, do you need to prepare any specific like kitchen items, utensils when traveling abroad?
I do. It's funny to see my check bags. I tend to bring a cutting board. It's really depending where we are. So, because some like Airbnbs and places are fully stocked, and some quality of the kitchen tools in those are great. You just can maybe just do a rewash to get them. But some of the pans are like nonstick and they're chopped up and they're all scratched up, and I wouldn't trust it. I don't like that. So I usually travel with, a cutting board, and maybe a pan, a saute pan that can be mixed used, a size that could, make the pancakes if I wanted to, but could also do, chicken and veggies or whatever. I don't even bother with like a colander or anything like that. You can get collapsible colanders if you're really wanting to do that for pastas, but it seems like kind of we just don't have that kind of food if it's an issue. But and then when we get to a place, I will then pick up some stuff, maybe an extra sponge. Some Airbnbs start you off with a clean sponge. But I'll pick up some foil. I'll pick up, natural good barriers for cooking. You can, foil will go a long way with, not maybe in TSA, but in a kitchen to create, barriers of if there's a grill pan or whatever. Yeah, other tools. I don't know. Most things can be rewashed in a space. So in the Airbnbs and VRBOs.
Yeah, I echo that as well. I will typically have a cutting board and a saute pan since it can be multi-purpose, which is wonderful. And then I will always go to like a Walmart or anything like that for snacks. And also then we'll always pick up a little thing of soap and sponges just because most Airbnbs have them, but not always. Or if I remember to throw a sponge in my suitcase beforehand. And then just making sure everything is clean or just rewashing it beforehand if you want to be extra cautious as well. Too, my husband is famous for that and just trying to wash every dish in an Airbnb before we use anything, which probably not necessary, but very sweet. So.
I also like to pack actually favorite seasonings, because that's the little thing. I know that if they don't come in a small enough thing, I'll just kind of put them in a Ziploc or a smaller container. But seasonings, because that's kind of a challenging sometimes in general. And so if there's a family favorite that I know we use a lot of and that we love and will help with making the food taste better when we're cooking out, in a different space, I like to have seasonings.
I like all of these recommendations, guys. Those are really great. And I'm seeing in the chat we have a lot of other shared recommendations. So thank you for all of the participants for sharing your suggestions and experiences as well. Guys, I'd like to close it off just with final thoughts from the group. So would love each of the panelists just to have a chance to give some final thoughts on this idea of traveling gluten-free, the challenges, the joys. How about we let it go round robin? I'll start with Erin, go to Anne, and then Dr. Romka to wrap us off. Just your final thoughts, please, as we finish up.
I just want to encourage you. I mean, like we said earlier, you don't have to get on a plane to Europe tomorrow. You can go from Seattle to Portland or even Seattle to Tacoma. Like just do what's comfortable for you. I mean, I have 4 decades of experience living with celiac and traveling, but it took a long time to get to the comfort level I am at now. And it doesn't mean that I still don't get nervous. I do. Now that I live in Canada, it was another learning curve. But I would say just don't let your celiac stop you. It's not, you can still travel. You can still, I know we didn't get to nearly all the questions in here, but you can still go to camp, you can still go to college. And so I really want to emphasize that it's not the end of the world, even though it feels like it when you're diagnosed. I understand that. Sometimes people are just like, I don't know how to go on, but please, like, I really encourage you just to do baby steps with what you're comfortable with, and with time, it will get easier. And then book the trip to Europe when you're ready for it.
Am I next? Yeah, okay. Sorry, I forgot the order. I think my last thoughts are a little bit from like the parent and navigating the siblings and the dynamic of a family traveling, because, my daughter's diagnosis dictates where she can and cannot eat 100% of the time. That can be stressful for her on its own, and it can be stressful on everyone else because they also have their wants and desires to try new foods and new places and different restaurants. And so it can be really challenging sometimes when she feels like the focus is 100% on her, and then they can feel a little bit annoyed that they don't and everything. So I really backed off a little bit and just said, yeah, we don't have to travel 100% of the time as a pack of 5. If we're in a city, we can split off, like I could go with her to where she wants to go. And then my husband can take the other kids and go somewhere else. And so it's really just meeting everybody where they are. And sometimes it's just everyone's tired. And just the easiest thing is just to go find food that everyone likes. And it doesn't have to be all at the same place, all at the same time. And, just to kind of have fun with it. And it's better to start taking the baby steps to do it and to see what can and cannot be done, because as you grow your comfort level, you can do more things and there's more options. And the world seems wider than it can feel when you haven't made the first few baby steps, because like we've said before, it's amazing how many people really just want to feed you good food. And if they have the information and if you're clear about communication, they want to serve you. And so we can just give them a little bit of information and then they say, oh yes, we can do this. And then it's like, oh, okay, great. It's even from a shared kitchen. And it's so good to feel successful and be like, I did it. So it's great.
Yeah, I think, for my final thoughts too, I want to just, as they've said as well, encourage you that it's definitely possible and doable. Yes, it requires a little bit more work, but that's just, the world that we're navigating, and that's okay. and to utilize all your resources that you can, which includes your medical team. Whether you are nervous and you do want to have a letter from your doctor before you're traveling, just in case, or any other supports that you think you might need, definitely reaching out to them before you travel as well, I think is always helpful and can also provide some confidence in going forward as well.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing your insights. I've learned so much from this discussion here. And Erin, can we just ask, is there a good way to get additional resources from the community and the things that you have created?
Sure. I was going to post. It looks like I can't chat to the whole group. But I am on glutenfreeglobetrotter.com. You can email me at gfglobetrotter@gmail.com. And I'm happy to answer questions and also on Instagram. I mean, please reach out. I know there's so many questions in the chat. This is like an excellent chat, by the way. And I'm sorry we didn't get to everything. So please email me anytime. I'm happy to chat.
Yeah, thanks so much, Erin. And we will send out a follow-up email to the group, and I'll make sure that we can attach the information that you stated so people can reach out to you as well. And I'd like to say, again, thank you so much to the attendees. I think having celiac disease is about community. It's about sharing in experiences, sharing how to do things well, sharing how things have failed, and we work together to do better for ourselves and our families and our kids. So thank you all so much for being the community. And a little shout out to my little guy, who's done very well as well. So have a wonderful rest of the weekend, guys. And until next time, bye.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you.